Hey, welcome, friends, to week one of Missional Theology. My name is Dr. Jeff Stark, and I will be your guide over the course of these next 8 weeks. So I want to first off thank you for taking this journey with me. Missional Theology is one of my favorite courses that I teach. It's been one of the major pieces of emphasis and focus throughout my academic journey. And it's an area of interest that I have both from a scholarly level and also as someone who has spent the better part of my journey as a practitioner of faith. And so we're going to take this journey together, and I'm excited that and humbled that you would be a part of this course. Now, as we get started, let me introduce myself first. As I've said already, my name is Dr. Jeff Stark. I'm an associate professor here at Olivet Nazarene University, full-time faculty. I also live in the city of Chicago and operate a non-for-profit called Reach 77, which seeks to extend the reach of God's redemptive reign throughout the 77 neighborhoods of Chicago. A little bit about how I got there. So I didn't become a Christ follower until my mid-20s. The Lord saved me out of a very radically broken background, and God just redeemed, restored, and made new my life. And my wife was saved about a month after I was. We were both I was in the military. She was a military spouse. I was deployed to Kosovo and Macedonia when I became a Jesus follower. God reunited us and began to grow us. The church that we landed in when I came back to the States was Clarksville First Church of the Nazarene, where God used that church in a phenomenal way. It was a church that was in the midst of a significant transition from being what I would call a traditional, very staid Church of the Nazarene, sort of a hallmark in that area, a very strong, healthy church throughout the years. But God had sent a pastor there to transition it into a much more, what I would call, missional outpost in the community, where we were making the priority of the least, the last, the lost, the broken, the battered, the wounded, and the weary. And God planted us there at that church at the time of that transition. Now, the transition wasn't always easy, and we'll talk about that throughout this course. When you begin to make that missional paradigm shift and the costs that are associated with that shift. But I arrived there as someone eager to experience Christianity in a very different way. And I had an opportunity, not only from a layman's perspective, but ultimately I ended up on staff there for about 6 years, filling a variety of different pastoral and associate roles, and helping to make that transition into a very missionally minded, missionally focused community of faith. And we'll define this language as we go throughout this course. But I want to say that we leaned into the community. It wasn't just about the number of people that attended our church. It was about the fingerprint of the kingdom throughout that community and the ways in which God was calling us to bear witness to that kingdom in the lives of those who were often left on the margins and left broken and wounded from life's choices or life's demands. And so I was blessed to be a part of that until about 2009, where I then made a shift to my first lead pastor role and pastored a church. It was a 100-year-old church by the name of Aaron Church of the Nazarene, and I was moving in there, a couple hundred people, and God just used that 5 years in just an extremely incredible way in my life. Taught me how to pastor better, also taught me how to help a church that had existed in a community for 100 years and already had a strong background. Again, make that shift to what it would look like to be a little bit more missionally minded within the community that it found itself. And I'll share stories throughout this course about my time there in that small community. The town I pastored in was about 2,000. The county was 8,000. So I'd gone from a community of about 135,000 military community to a town of about 2,000 in a county of 8,000, and had to learn how to make those adaptive changes in the midst of all of that. In 2014, I would be eventually called to pastor Bridgeway Community Church in Pekin, Illinois, a community of about 35,000 people in a county of about 70,000 people that sat on the banks of the Peoria River just across the bridge from Peoria. And in that community of faith, it was already, I would say, very missional. Their desire to reach those completely disengaged from Jesus I think, shaped the entirety of who they understood themselves to be. And I had an opportunity to step in there and to help spearhead some new movement into that community, and then to also set the stage for a multiplication culture there in that church. And so we developed a church planting residency program. We began to launch new campuses, new church plants from that church. And God just gave us an opportunity to see just a tremendous move of God in that community. In 2019, I was called to make the shift to Chicago, so I've gone from a town of 135,000 to about a town of 2,000 to a town of 35,000, now to a city of 2.7 million. And I am learning what it looks like to live missionally into that community. And again, you'll be able to hear some fresh stories from me along this journey about what God is teaching me to live missionally. In fact, as I'm teaching this course, I've also joined a leadership cohort through the Chicago Partnership to help me to learn from leaders who've been leading in Chicago for a good deal of years to help me to think, what does it mean to live and operate and minister missionally in the city of Chicago? This journey is going to explore a lot of terminology. We're going to talk about the significant paradigm shift that this unique moment in history affords us as the church. I think this is an incredible and opportunistic time for the church. We, given all that we've experienced, the racial inequalities, the advent of COVID, the post-Christianization of America, are forced to, as the church, to reflect upon, to dream about, and to imagine what the church could mean, look like, and be as we move forward in through this 21st century. And you are standing on the edge of that. And so I'm excited about what God may want to teach you in this process. Throughout this journey, I'm going to invite you to consider what a missional hermeneutic is. That'll in fact be the content of the first week and a half of lectures. We're going to talk about what does it mean to read the Bible itself through a very missional lens. We're going to talk about a missional ecclesiology. What does it mean for the church to understand itself as postured toward the world for the sake of the kingdom, where it's not about the number of people that arrive at your location, but the number of people that you raise up, dispatch, and send into the community to make an incredible difference. We're going to talk about a missional theological framework. We're going to get into the weeds a little bit on some theology, because I think theology matters. This is a class called Missional Theology. And it's not just about practics and pragmatics. It's also about understanding the deep theological framework that can become the wellspring out of which your ministry springs. We're going to read 4 books together throughout the course. Those books are going to cover missional ecclesiology, a framework for understanding what the mission and the movement of Jesus can look like. And that's going to be the book from Alan Hirsch. We're going to talk about the kind of postures that the church can imagine itself taking towards the world in the book of Sentinus. And then we're going to talk, I think, about the pivotal role that justice plays within the life of the church in terms of its missional posture in the world. And all of this is going to be deeply, deeply interwoven throughout with the message of the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, which I believe to be the best news. I believe that Jesus Christ is the hinge on which all of human history swings, and a robust Christology, a robust doctrine of Jesus, is going to be pivotal for us as we move throughout this course. It's 8 weeks. It's intense. It's going to require a lot of you, but I promise you, I'm going to give you my best, and I do believe that many of you are going to experience paradigm shifts as you begin to dream and imagine of where you go from here as a leader, practitioner, and pastor in the Church of Jesus. And so I'm encouraged and excited about what lay ahead for you. In this first week, you'll get a sense of what each week is going to look like. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, I will be posting 3 to 5 lectures on missional hermeneutics, and that will give you an opportunity to explore the Bible from a missional lens. On Wednesday, you will reflect on those lectures, and on Thursday, you will then reflect to 2 of your classmates' reflections on those lectures as well. I will be reading those and engaging in the conversation all along the way. On Wednesday, you have a paper due. It's your first paper, and that's why Monday, I want to give you space to just write. So on Monday, today, I would encourage you to start writing. It's an essay on your missional context. Now, some of you are pastors, and you should be able to describe very clearly your missional context. I've given you some ideas and inclinations of what that should include there on the assignment, but I want you to talk about the setting. Not just your church setting. I want to know about the community that you find yourself situated in. Give me some statistics. Help me to understand where it is that you find yourself and what operates in the background of how and why you do ministry the way you do. I am convinced, and you'll hear this from me over and over again throughout this course, dirt matters. Where we place our feet matters. Context matters. In fact, I would say at the heart of missional theology is a reemergence of the importance of context. No longer are we stuck in sort of homogeneity. We want to believe that the places that we find ourselves shape people to live certain kinds of lives, and that the gospel must make contextual sense in those spaces and places. So take some time and help me to understand your context. If you're not pastoring, one of the challenges I'm going to offer you is, as a Jesus follower, we've always got to understand our missional context. Where do I find myself? What is my sphere of influence? And in what ways can I bear witness to the kingdom of God in the spaces that I find myself? If you can't do that as a leader, it's going to be hard for you to help your people in the congregation to do that, because that's the shift that we need to make. We need to make the shift where more and more people, Jesus followers, lay people, are recognizing that they are, in fact, missional agents, missionaries being sent out into the harvest field to make a difference for the kingdom of God. So this is going to be a journey that you and I will take together. I'm excited and thrilled about what lay ahead of us. I will be very engaged in the conversations. I will be your guide. I am learning alongside of you in this process. That is one of the blessings of missional theology, is that missional theology is never I've arrived kind of place. In fact, when I came to teach at Olivet, one of the things that I said is, if you're going to bring me, I've got to remain a practitioner, which is why they're allowing me to live in Chicago and do the work from Chicago a few days a week, because I've got to stay on the edge of God's missional future, God's missional purposes, God's missional plan within the city and more broadly within the United States and the churches that I work with, and perhaps even globally as well. We've got much to learn from each other. We've got a long journey ahead over these next 8 weeks. It's going to require a lot of you, but I believe in you, and I know that God is going to lead us on this journey. And when you emerge from the back end of this journey, you're going to have something to offer your church that I think is going to compel it and help to move it forward into the future that God has for it. I look forward to tomorrow, where I lay out a number of lectures that I think will help us to imagine what a missional hermeneutic will look like.